Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us. We are live at Albayan Studios in this 27th night of Ramadan, joined by our dear guest Saeed Al Khodary. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Amar. Dr.
How are you?
Amar.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Subhanallah. Every Saturday we do like a health program, even though it's the 27th night, but we decided to keep the trend of the health program. Subhanallah. And these.
Glad to be here.
Sorry.
Glad to be here.
Yes, subhanallah. And as usual, we're honored, subhanallah, to have you share, subhanallah, insight into, and we'll try to look at issues that relate to Muslims and their day-to-day life. And I think also important to clear up misconceptions. And we've chosen to tackle the issue of drug misuse, or the misuse of drugs. Just before we get into it, just a little bit of introduction in regards to pharmacies and chemists, because a lot of people have maybe this perception that these things started as like sales stores to sell products. Rather, it's actually the opposite. They actually came about to restrict and control the use of medications, as people were taking everything and anything, and there was no regulation. So that.
Well, look, we are stores, yes, but we are highly regulated. So, the medicines are there for a purpose, and there's certain criteria to different medicines that we have in the store, and it's just because it's there doesn't mean you're always going to get it. It's there for the benefit of the public, but if it's the right thing for you.
So in saying that it was widespread, the misuse, let's say in like the 20s and 30s, you heard people drinking mercury, you heard people taking cocaine. So obviously something had to be done. And the only way this could be regulated is saying, okay, first of all, you doctors need also regulation. The chemists and the pharmacists, they need to make sure that when people are taking, they're taking the right substances and approved substances. And because in reality, everything is considered in drugs to be a poison. And we'll get into that. So then there were rules and regulations. Because I've heard of people going to pharmacies and they're saying, no, sorry, we can't give you a script because according to our record, you've been banned, or, you're so it's overseeing someone's treatment. And so we tend to see this S1, S2, S3. Can you explain what that means? And why does it fall underneath this term poison?
Well, look, at the end of the day, you got to remember that, any medicine can be dangerous, no matter how, harmful or, how harmless we might think it is. So it's possible that enough of it will be poisonous to you. We do have these laws and regulations around medicines, and they're basic, we call them the schedules, the poisons and therapeutic regulations that decides on how you should use them. But we also have a scheduling for medicine. So there's something called what we call an S2, a Schedule 2. That's a pharmacy medicine. So that's something that you'll find only in the pharmacy. You won't find it, in a supermarket or at the service station or anything like that. Doesn't have to be given out by the pharmacist, but it has to be only sold in the pharmacy. And then we have the Schedule 3. That's what we call a pharmacist-only medicine. So it's safe to use, but you need professional advice.
So the pharmacist has to give it to you.
The pharmacist has to give that to you. And you'll find those ones behind the counter in the pharmacy.
So someone can walk up to the pharmacist and say, I got an issue, I need certain eye drops, I need whatever.
Yep.
And then he will take it behind the counter and say, this is what you need, this is how you take it.
Yeah, or might present with a problem, say, look, I'm having trouble sleeping or something like that, or, whatever.
Yeah. And the classification is like, it's less obviously harmful. The more harmful you get, the more
the closer it gets to the back of the pharmacy, really, yeah, that's right.
The common one, as we know, is after S3 we see the most common is S4.
S4, and that's a prescription-only medicine. So that's something that can only be obtained with a prescription from a pharmacist, from a doctor. Sorry.
But even after the doctor prescribes, the pharmacist still has to cross-check. Yeah, he has
Yeah,
to.
we have to. We're checking anything else that it might interact with. If what other medications you're taking with it. Also, whether it's appropriate for you as well, and whether the quantity is appropriate for you as well. So there's lots of other things that we'll do, and we check with that.
The S6, we don't sort of, to what I know, we don't come across that as much.
Nah, S5s and S6 are just like things that you might have in the household that need special labels, special.
So it
caps
doesn't
on
cover
them.
it covers anything of poison,
Poisons, yeah,
pretty much.
it's poison. So, people will say, "Oh, so medicine's a poison." Well, I mean,
in large amounts or in
anything
wrong amounts,
can be a poison, really. Panadol can be a poison.
Well, someone was telling me that drink salt water. It's not going to be good for you.
Salt water is the latest trend. I've noticed. I don't know. I've had a few people now tell me, "Oh, you should be drinking a little bit of salt in your water,
Yeah.
to help your hydration during Ramadan."
Wouldn't it do the opposite?
No, it does help. It actually
Does
it does help, but there's something better than just putting a pinch of salt in your water because what happens is, just off topic, but salt does help the absorption of water in through the kidneys. So a little bit of salt is okay, but at the right concentration. So that's why we have proper products.
So that's the
like
best example.
Hydrolite.
Like drink salt from the sea. That's why people that are shipwrecked, they can't just drink.
No, you can't.
The whole ocean in front of you, you can't.
You can't touch it.
You can't touch it. Concentration's too high.
Concentration's too high. Yeah.
And small, that's amazing. Like, someone will die of thirst, but there's so much water, but he can't drink it. So in concentration and moderation, that's an example.
Yeah.
And S8 is the one that generally that is like a specialist or someone,
S8s are what we call the controlled drugs. They're the ones in the safe. They're the ones that there's a restriction on who can manufacture them, who can supply them, who can distribute them, who can have them in their own possession.
Yeah.
And that's because they're highly, highly, highly up for abuse, misuse, addiction. They're also known as drugs of addiction. Now they're the ones we keep in the safe. They're very controlled, very, very restricted. Anyone who gets it we record it in a separate register of the doctor, the patient's name and the patient's address, how many they took, what day they took it, all that kind of thing.
So people are not aware. Like, it's when we say regulated, this was to fix a problem, which was originally misuse.
Yes.
And before I'd seen like people would advertise rattlesnake poison will cure you from 1, 2, 3, 4. And had all these different people advertising, and there's no regulation. So obviously you needed to put some system into place, to regulate and to do all these things and provide what's good, what's not good, and then obviously have someone oversee all that, health professional look after all that type of stuff.
Yes.
But then in a way people have tried to find loopholes, and that's moved to our next point, prescription drug misuse. How bad is it? And just with anything, I guess anything can be abused. And so people have fallen into this issue of abusing prescription medication. And it is something very, very common, and something that obviously you find that there's a lot of discussion with health professionals and government officials and all that. They're trying to even regulate it even more. How bad is it, and what effect does it have upon like society or people?
Well, I mean, let's the most common drugs that are being misused really now are what we call the opioids, and they're part of those S8 or the controlled drugs, and also the benzodiazepines. You've probably heard of them, benzos, like things like endone, OxyContin, codeine, and the benzos, Valium and Xanax and those kind of things. They're the most common ones now, but especially what we call opioid addiction. So the endone and the OxyContin and those type of drugs. So in Australia, the stats are really like a significant concern now. So, I've tracked down a couple of stats just from January 22 up to January 22 is what we had. The addiction has been rising steadily in Australia over the last 10 years. And now it's estimated about 3.1 million Australians are currently using opioids.
So say it again,
3.1 million Australians are using
in
opioids
population, that's like
consistently.
10%? Less than 10%?
If Australia's 2.5 million, if Australia's about 25 million,
25, 26.
it's more than 10%.
That's and you want to consider how many adults there is, and you're talking like could be talking like 1 in 10 adults.
Well,
1 in 8
I
adults.
don't know how many adults there are in Australia out of that 25 million, but it's high. It's very high. Now, I'm not 100% if that's consistent, like constant use or just partial something. It doesn't tell me that in the stat, but it's still extremely high. In fact, Australia's got one of the highest rates of opioid prescribing in the world, which is quite surprising.
So with opioid, because I know sometimes people, when they hear about like American programs, they hear fentanyl.
Yes.
Is that the same thing?
Yeah. Fentanyl is
and that does exist.
Fentanyl is a huge problem in America.
Yeah.
Because over there they're getting it shipped in from China. Fentanyl is a very big problem here. We had a huge problem with fentanyl we still do, but a few years ago there was a lot of fake fentanyl prescriptions being presented all around Sydney, really around New South Wales. It is a big problem. And all the opioids are a problem. Look, there's endone, OxyContin, fentanyl, Duragesic. They're patches, and they do things to them, and they cut them up, and they extract the drug out of them and inject them. It's a really big problem, especially in the rural areas as well.
Do you know what I find amazing? How humans are able to re-engineer things. Like they're able to get something. Like I remember I watched this documentary about how they make ice, and they have like about 10 different chemicals from the shop, and then they get batteries and they undo the batteries, and then they got this whole process. And I think like, who knew that? Who invented that?
How did you do it?
How do you know you got to take a battery, and how do you know you have to get this product, and how do you know you have to get all these different type of chemicals, and like, for someone to come up with that, it takes a lot of a lot of effort.
Humans are pretty smart sometimes.
So
when they put their mind to it,
they can achieve. And you hear people manufacturing things themselves, and you think like, you didn't even finish school. How is that possible? But as they say, there's a will, there's a way, or there's a way, there's a will.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah. Where there's a motivation, generally it's motivation by money. Yeah. So people tend to work it out, do whatever they can.
So in regards to the opioid, you mentioned that it's a lot. And
it's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot.
From that, a lot. Obviously, you're gonna have issues. What we do find, we hear the word a lot in regards to, especially the high part of society, with accidental. They refer to as accidental overdose.
Overdose, yeah. So very common. Opioids are really dangerous because when you have too much of them and you accidentally overdose, it stops you from breathing. So it depresses what we call the CNS, the central nervous system, and that lowers your breathing rate, and that eventually how you die. Look, a lot of the time it is mixed in with other drugs.
And how long does it take for someone to become addicted and like fall into this risk of overdosing? Like, is it like years thing or?
Look, the overdose admittedly is happening with the mixture of other things, whether it's alcohol, benzodiazepines. All those are what we call CNS depressants. They're all depressing your central nervous system. So the more you add onto it, the more it happens. So look, opioids, will take you 1 to 2 weeks before you start forming an addiction.
That long? That's not long at all.
Like,
let's say, for example, someone has some serious back issues.
Yep.
And nothing is working, and he has to hop on endone or some opioid.
Yes.
1 to 2 weeks is not a long time.
No, it's not. It's and why that's why it's we overdose. Addiction can happen. Look, addiction with opioids, it happens to people who aren't your typical, people have this perception that you have to be you're a drug addict.
Yeah.
But it happens to normal people
Yeah.
because they might have some, and it's normally chronic back pain or some chronic pain somewhere, and they give excellent relief. But the problem is, they also get you also get addicted to it. And you form an addiction, and part of that addiction becomes that, if you're taking 2 tablets a day, then all of a sudden you need to take 3 or 4, or they go to a higher strength, and slowly you're building up a tolerance, and then during that tolerance you're also building up an addiction. So when you want to come off them,
misuse can be, what's that word? Like when someone's learning how to drive, like misuse can be a process where it's not intended to be misused, but because of the gradual use of it and the need of the use of it, a person ends up finding himself at one point, someone telling him, I think you're addicted, and he probably won't realize that I've actually gone that far. So this is serious, and this could be something.
It's serious, and it's extremely common.
And then when he'll go to the doctor would say, "Oh, listen, I've given you enough for this month." Because of that addiction, now he's got no choice but to.
Yeah, and look, these things are expensive on the black market, from what people tell me. You could be, up to a few $100s for a box of something that would normally cost you, if you had a prescription, $10 to $15. So, but it's opioid. We're talking about opioids. They are a physical addiction. So, when you're addicted to something, there's either a mental addiction or like a physical addiction. So, a physical addiction is, if you don't have that drug, you get some effects from it. You'll get withdrawal effects. So, and then when there's a mental addiction, it's more like you just want it. It's just something that you want. If you don't have it, nothing really happens to you. You don't start, having withdrawal effects. You just feel like you want it all the time.
So withdrawal, like things that you see, signs and symptoms of someone saying this person's having withdrawal.
Yeah. So, for example, opioids. So when you don't have, let's say you're addicted to OxyContin or fentanyl, and then you don't get it, or heroin is the original, not the original, but what everyone knows as that's the opioid that everyone was addicted to. But now hardly, heroin use has dropped by a lot compared to, I've got a stat actually, there was a stat there where the drug and alcohol counselling services now receive more calls about prescription opioids, about 31% of calls, than they do for heroin, which is about 12%. Now, in the 80s, I don't know if you're around in the 80s. You're a young guy. You're a young guy. In the 80s, heroin was a massive problem.
They used to always show TV, like people foil spoons. Which was the heroin.
That was heroin. That was heroin. Yeah. Heroin these days is just not as big as prescription opioids, which is surprising. But so back to opioids. So what would happen is you get actual effects: agitation, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, sweating, cramping. These are the things that would happen to you when you don't have them. So that makes that addiction much, much, much harder to break, because there's a physical addiction.
You know what's something interesting? Like a good person ends up having an injury at work, has to go on opioids, becomes dependent upon it. Doctor said, I can't give you any more. Then he starts buying them from the black market and so forth. Then he can't get it as much. Then he starts to have these physical withdrawal symptoms, agitation, like being psychotic and things like that.
Yeah.
He goes crazy, and he might end up harming a family member or murdering a family member or something happening. Then when he stands in front of a judge, he's judged obviously as that none of that is taken into consideration, and he can end up spending life in jail, or because of something in which he really had no control over, other than falling into it. You know what I mean? Step by step. And it's sad. It's very sad.
It's a story that is repeated all over Australia every day. That's what happens. That's what happens. Normal people. You've just got to be careful. It's one of the side. It's why they're so regulated. Now that's sometimes a bit of a problem because the doctors or the pharmacy might say, listen, hey, you only got this a few days ago. I can't give it to you now.
Yeah.
And the doctor might be saying, well, you know what, well, man, I saw you a few days ago and you asked me for this. And then the doctor goes, no, you can't have it anymore. And then all of a sudden, these actual drugs as well, when you want to stop, you can't just, if you've been on for a long time, you can't just stop.
You got to wean yourself.
You got to wean yourself off. Yeah. So anyone who's, in that position would need to be seriously talking to their doctor about what options there are. Look, there is, the methadone program. You've probably heard of methadone, which is an opioid a slow-acting opioid that's used to wean people off. Initially it was heroin, but it's for all this now, all the OxyContin and all that kind of thing. That's one of the options that's available to people. There's a bit of a stigma towards it, but it does work if you really want to do it. It does work. That's one option to use as well.
And I think there's a little bit of self-accountability in a sense where, if you've got some pain and the doctor's prescribing something to you, you have responsibility to also seek another opinion, do your research.
Yep.
There are other medications that also can work really, really well.
Yes.
I know now that they're prescribing cannabis oil, for example, which is having,
exactly.
which pretty much, to what I've understood, is the side effects are very minimal. Doesn't have that type of addictive effect, and is working really well with the patients that I see are peripheral neuropathy, having like really, really good results.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and the cost is subsidized, and it's prescribed through a doctor and overseen by health professionals, as an alternative for
we've
these
seen
pain
great
medications.
results with back pain with CBD oil, and even with or without the THC. The THC being the part that makes you a bit woozy.
Yeah.
But we've seen really good results as well with that for back pain and chronic pain. So there is other options. Opioids aren't the only answer. They help. Look, they have a specific role, and that's for short-term use.
I think the
after
main use
operations
was it for post-op.
Post-op,
like post-op for a couple of days,
and and then cancer as well.
Yeah.
For
End of life whatever.
care. Yeah.
And surprisingly, that there was, I think, some studies that end of life care, that a lot of them actually die from overdose. Then there's been talk about that.
There is. Towards the end, they just keep giving enough morphine where it.
I'll make it easy, and it is a difficult situation, but in a sense where that if they're giving it to people at this end of life where they have cancer throughout their whole body, if someone's taking it because he has a sore finger or his whatever, like, he should be able to find hopefully another alternative. And this is why obviously having a doctor that really fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and wants your best interest will say to you, listen, we're only going to give you a course for a few days to get you by, but we need to look at your pain pain management and see how we're going to
I think some of the issues are the pain management that people the pain management that people, they just sometimes don't go ahead with. There's physiotherapy, there's other things that you can do.
Hydro. Where's Jamal? Jamal's not here. Yeah, Lakewood.
Is he a physio? Is he?
Hydro.
Is he?
No, he does hydro.
Oh, he does hydro.
Hydro. Thumbs up. There you go.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
Thumbs up for hydro. So yeah.
Yeah, but there's lots of other things. But I don't want to call humans lazy, but we want the easy way out, and sometimes just taking a tablet is the easy way out. I'm not belittling any back pain because it can be very difficult, or any chronic pain. But you do just have to be careful that once you're addicted, you build up tolerance as well. So you're going to need more and more and more, and the authorities are actually cracking down on. They're not happy with the amount of prescriptions for this stuff. So they're cracking down on doctors and pharmacists and everyone in the whole system. So, you know, you could find yourself one day the doctor's like, I can't write it for you anymore.
We did speak with when Dr. Youssef was on, like there was some topic about pain management and things like that. Just like a little sort of point, and he was mentioning things like, there is a lot of alternative medicine. We mentioned one of them, which was the cannabis oil. Yeah. But he said like, exercise is a big one. Yep. Seeking the right program for management, diet is another one, and not forgetting obviously the sunnah remedies. Today I was having someone telling me that the relief of their back pain came through hijama, according to the sunnah. Yeah.
Which is for the English
blood cupping. I think
blood cupping is cupping.
Blood cupping, yes, cupping,
yeah. And they say it's funny. I've seen a few football players on there. I don't know. I was watching the footy the other day, and I'm like, that guy got cupping on the back of his neck.
Yeah, they can do it just without obviously the blood cupping, to what I've understood. But I've heard actually athletes doing blood cupping, the actual the sunnah way of doing it. And subhanallah, if this is something we know from the sunnah, it's to obviously relieve. But subhanallah, I think we have to understand that we do have, and you can look at, I don't know if you want to say, but we do have obviously the Quran and Sunnah. This may be the alternative medicine.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, when you look at it that way,
to look at it in that way. And to what I've understood, in a sense where a lot of people say, I've done this, I've done that. But what we learn from the Prophet ﷺ is that the medicines of the Prophet ﷺ, they have dosages. Yeah, it's got to be done the right way. It's got to be done in a certain way. So a lot of people just say, I just took a spoon of honey. But we know that it's not necessarily the case. Sometimes there's more than one recommendations when it comes to the Prophet's medicine. And alhamdulillah, it looks like these days there are a lot of people that do sort of focus on the sunnah. And I remember there was a brother that I once saw in the masjid, and we're discussing some of the Prophet's medicine. We're talking about honey, and he came and he actually said he has, subhanAllah, because he's a researcher in medical health, and he was telling us that his research is based on honey against Staph aureus.
Yes.
And Staph aureus, the bacteria infection, does not grow in honey. And he said that for wounds, like someone has a wound, they have now something called Medihoney, which is medical grade sort of honey.
We sell it. And
I guess that they just purify from any pieces of bee and things like that.
Yeah, it's Manuka honey based.
And they actually pour it into wounds to stop. And he said this is the amazing thing. He goes, the research he's looking at, he goes, we know that it stops Staph aureus. He goes, but we can't figure out how to inject honey in the bloodstream.
No.
So if someone has golden staph or a staph infection, he goes, we can't
internally.
This is the research that I'm looking at, and we found that very fascinating.
Yeah.
Because as for those that don't know, one of the bacteria that sort of doesn't have much antibiotics that can.
Yeah, there's a lot of resistance.
Yeah, a lot of resistance. I think there's maybe one or something like vancomycin or something like that.
Yeah.
Is what they call Staph aureus or infection.
Golden staph.
But the honey, that bacteria doesn't actually grow or in honey. That's why they use it on wounds.
But they can't get it internally.
Apparently, he's looking at saying, okay, we know it works, but we don't have a mechanism to put it into the bloodstream. So just out of interest, like we do have, alhamdulillah, haqq and truth in these remedies.
Course, Honey is a very complex compound. It's very complex. It has thousands of enzymes in it.
Is it true? Someone told me it doesn't have a use-by date. It can last.
Well, I mean the packaged stuff does, but I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why it would. I mean, if you're going to eat it, I think by law you have to have a use-by date. So
I think someone was saying that they found like honey in Egypt and Pharaoh. I don't know. So maybe we can ask Dave. So we talked about opioids. This is the big one now. This is a big one. Other than opioids, opioids obviously most people start because of pain.
Yes.
This is sort of a different kettle of fish. The CNS depressants, which we hear, Xanax, Valium, we hear these, especially those two. We hear them a lot. Okay, so for me, why would I even need to be on these medications?
All right. So these medications, they're what we call CNS depressants as well. They're for anxiety, sleep. That's what people
So
mostly use.
antidepressants, generally
They're not antidepressants. No, they're different.
they're not.
They're not antidepressants.
Because that's what generally people refer to them as.
Yeah, no, these are anti-anxiety or sleep.
So just to relax the person.
Relax the person. They're often used with antidepressants, but not always. But they're not antidepressants.
Because that's a common thing. You actually hear
Anxiety
والليل يهدأ عند السحر وتأتي
it relaxes them. It just calms me down. SubhanAllah. Look, some people need to use them for that, and help initiate sleep, help people sleep. A lot of people have trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
I don't know, if you've come across many people who've had trouble sleeping, but it's a very common thing.
Does the oil that we mentioned also help in sleeping? Cannabis oil?
The one with the THC can.
Yeah.
But obviously that has other effects as well. On really, some of the cannabis oil. For people who don't know, there's basically two types. There's the CBD oil, and then there's the oil that doesn't. The CBD oil that has no THC, what we call tetrahydrocannabinol. That's the bit.
Gets you high.
Yeah, the bit that makes you like stoned. I don't know which other way to say it. Sorry, but that's the bit that makes you a bit, that has the effects of marijuana, if you like, and the CBD still has, a pain relief effect, but without that effect. So, the one with the THC can help you sleep. The other one doesn't really help you, like put you to sleep.
But it can maybe relax.
But it can help. It helps in the overall pain, which will help you sleep, if that makes sense. So, you just got to be careful though. The one with the THC, if you do get drug tested, by the police, it will show up in a drug test.
Yeah.
So, that's something to consider if you're going to be using it.
And it's also with the CNS depressants, they're addictive. These
benzodiazepines, I'll call them benzos because that's what most people know them, but they're called benzodiazepines, these ones. And yes, they have a physical addiction.
So question, with addiction, are we talking about you're addicted to the actual chemical makeup, or are you addicted to the effect that it has?
You're addicted to a physical addiction means you are addicted to the effect that it has.
But can I say
but
sometimes
it could be if you're addicted to Xanax, for instance, and then you couldn't find any, and you had Valium, well, that would help you.
Because they say like nicotine actually is addicted. You get an addiction which physically changes in your brain. You know what I mean? Is that something similar?
Yes. Well, I was going to make that point. Nicotine is another drug that has physical addiction. So what that means is, again, if you don't have the nicotine, then you get these effects, agitation, can't sleep, all these things. Physical addiction. Caffeine is another one. Caffeine. If you don't have caffeine, you're addicted to caffeine. You don't have it, you stop having it abruptly, you'll get headaches, grumpiness. I don't know, are you a coffee drinker? Brother Nadal is, I don't know if he's still drinking his V's and Red Bulls.
I'm a moderate coffee drinker, I would say.
Yeah.
Like V's. A coffee and a
He
V.
wants you to check your phone.
Oh, the phone.
Check your phone.
We had the other phone. I don't know what happened to it. Sorry, boys. The battery's...
His battery's dead.
Battery's gone. What happened to the... I think we... where we
Yeah.
put it. Yeah, so... it can be addictive. You've got here, you've written 2 weeks. So 2 weeks is generally the...
2 weeks, again, is the... Yeah, 2 weeks is the time where you start to build up an addiction to the benzos as well.
Yep.
So again, these are normally only used for short-term use or intermittent use. If you've got anxiety, you would only use one every now and again. If you're using for sleep, you would only use it for a couple of, a few days or a week or something like that. And then these ones as well will give you, you have to withdraw off them very slowly as well.
SubhanAllah. Just got a question here. I hear that CBD has a sedative after effect, but not any effect on melatonin. Do you understand
Correct.
what that means?
Yes, that's correct. It doesn't affect melatonin.
What is melatonin?
Melatonin is a natural hormone
Yeah.
in the body that controls, regulates sleep. So it knows, subhanAllah, the body knows when when it's daytime, your melatonin is low, and when it gets nighttime, your melatonin increases and helps
So it
you
doesn't
fall
affect
asleep.
the clock, to say.
Yes, that won't affect the clock.
And he's saying that that means that it doesn't regulate your sleep.
No, that's correct, yeah. But it won't regulate your sleep.
It just helps you sleep.
It just helps you. It'll help you sleep, but it won't regulate your sleep, no.
Yeah.
No, if you want to regulating your sleep, you could use melatonin supplements to help regulate your sleep if you needed to, for shift workers and those kind of things. But, no, your body naturally regulates sleep from melatonin.
So that's with the CNS. Again, we will mention that any seek advice, obviously, from a God-fearing health professional that has your best interest at heart.
And ask questions if you need to know something. Ask a question. Look, your pharmacist will generally talk to you about these things, and your doctor would explain them as well. But if you're not sure how long it's going to take, how long you should be on them, all those kind of things, that's what you need to speak to your doctor.
But just like sometimes
pharmacist
people,
about.
I feel, oh, my mate's on it, I'm going to hop on it. Or his friend told him, bro, it's the best thing I ever did. And you know what I mean? Like it turns into like more of a luxury lifestyle. Sometimes it's psychosomatic, which, and for those that don't know what that means, is them taking it, they react in a certain way, but really doesn't have that effect, but they just believe that's the effect.
Yeah.
And they actually truly believe that it's helping them. They might say, I'll take it before an exam and I'll become smarter. But that's not what it's really doing. But just because your mind is set, that's what it does.
That's what you think it's going to do.
You know, you might actually trigger yourself to focus more and you put a bit more effort in your exam. You say, oh, I got better marks, see? But no, you've actually...
Yeah, look,
you know,
you shouldn't be taking anything that hasn't been prescribed to you. I just remind people not to do that because you don't know. The doctor has given someone something. He knows their history. He knows a lot more about them. You know, the doctor hasn't given you this product because, or this medicine, which remember can be a poison. You know, and it could react differently for you, or it's not appropriate for you. There's, you know, it's you shouldn't just take something just because, hey, my mate took it and it seems like it's all right.
The general rule is the benefit has to outweigh the harm.
Right.
My perspective is a lot of patients I see have fungal nails.
Yes.
And they always have this question of, can we hop on Lamisil oral?
Yes.
Which is oral antifungal, which is probably maybe one of, the few things that actually work in clearing.
Correct, yeah.
But something you take in the mouth and ending up in your nail has to be very potent and very strong. It has to be taken like for a long period of time.
Yes.
And it has high risk on liver and kidney, and they got to take ongoing blood tests.
That's right.
Majority of times is, brother, do you want to risk your kidneys and your liver, or do you want to have a nail that just doesn't look...
Well, that's right. You do have to have liver checks every few months with that.
So the harm in this situation looks like for a cosmetic, because that's the real reason.
Yeah.
It's not going to kill you.
They can use the topicals.
Yeah, and then there's other alternatives they can try.
A lot of people don't want to wait 9 months for it to work.
Yeah, so in a sense that it's the harm is going to outweigh. I know why that medication, to what I've understood, is really urgent for someone who has an internal like lung fungal infection, something serious, life-threatening. They put them on that medication. Normally, it's not for 3-6 months because it's normally just for a shorter period of time. So then you weigh it out and you say, well, yeah, it can be used for that, but the harm that it can cause on your body to take in that long period of time is not good. So then again, it goes to the general concept: if the benefit outweighs the harm, or the harm outweighs the actual benefit.
Yes.
The third point.
Yes.
So we mentioned in regards to the known as Xanax and Valium and so forth. Antidepressants.
Yes.
And like I said, sometimes we interchange these, but
Yeah.
they're different.
They are different. Yes.
Different category. And so with depression, I've always told people that, depression's obviously two types. There's one where because someone's away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the trust of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes the tranquility and the mercy out of his heart, and then his solution is to go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there is a depression that is chemical based on a chemical imbalance in the body. And sometimes you find a person, he fears Allah and he's a really religious brother, but he has, could be a thyroid issue, could be so many different issues. He's suffering from depression. Now there's a different category here of medications for that.
Yes. So they treat mental health disorders. Also obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't know if you've ever seen someone with that, but and major depressive disorder. So
Is that like that's not OCD?
OCD. Obsessive compulsive disorder. OCD. It's a real thing.
Isn't majority of people tell me everyone's wife is OCD?
Yes, man, I don't want to get into the wife subject.
But
mine might be listening.
But generally, what I've understood from OCD, the extreme one of OCD is like the one that won't shake hands or the one that won't touch any surfaces, like beyond, even if he's washed or cleaned, he has like a serious. It's got a mental illness that's associated.
Yes. Yeah. It's more than just someone who's obsessed with cleaning. Is what that's what most people.
Yeah.
It could be a whole range of other things as well.
Yeah.
Just so these kind of drugs. Now their addiction is not a physical addiction. So that some of them that you'll get withdrawal effects when you stop taking them, but that doesn't always mean that it's a physical addiction. These ones, the addiction is a psychological addiction. So, someone who just wants to keep taking them because they want to keep taking them. And then they mix them in with other things.
I used to see this old man, like when I was younger, and he always used to say, like he used to scream to his wife, "Jibil al-kalma, Jibil al-kalma." And I never really knew what that meant. She'd give me the stool and I'll just take one, so whatever. And then later down the track, I don't know who was telling me, they were saying, "Oh, he's run out, and he's gonna go crazy and he's gonna jinn." I'm like, "What is that?" He goes, "That's the only thing that's keeping him normal."
Yeah, well, that's karma. Karma is Xanax, the other brand of Xanax, so the benzo that we're talking about.
So those are just the reliance that people have.
Yeah. Look, this I've seen people. I've seen people trying to get off this stuff, the benzos. Yeah, it's not pretty. Yeah, it's very. I
don't know. They ran out and everyone freaked out.
They hallucinate. They, we see a lot of things in the pharmacy.
Hello, with the antidepressants, right? Is most people that are on antidepressants also on the benzos too, or
not always, but they're used in combination, fairly often.
So, what type of depression are we talking about in which the antidepressants will benefit? That's a big question, because we define depression as
it's very broad.
But generally things that are supposed to make you happy don't make you happy. Things that get you excited don't make you excited. Like generally, like as a reaction. But it obviously goes far beyond that. People always just feeling they're in a dark room, dark space. What type of, why would someone be given this medication versus the doctor saying, "Listen, I think you need to see a psychologist for counselling or advice," or we see a brother say, "Listen, you need to get closer to your religion," versus someone that says, "No, this is
what you need.
This is what you need."
Look, I think why you would definitely with any major depression or major mental health issues like bipolar, or any depression where it's starting to affect someone's life. so their everyday life. So
Marriage life, family life.
marriage life, whether it's one of the big signs of depression is like this, just tiredness all the time, or they just no will to get out of bed, no will to go to work, no will to go and do something, and that's where you would really start to consider some medication for people where it's really affecting their everyday life, where they just have no will, or suicidal, or that kind of thing.
And generally, like, it has to be a pattern, and the doctor will decide.
Yeah. And again, normally it's not long term. It might start as a minimum 3 to 6 months, and then be assessed from there. They do take, even antidepressants take about 1 month to get the full effect out of them. It's not something you take and then the next day you're feeling instantly.
And generally, there has to be an what they call non-stimulus or non-trigger. Like, if your parents passed away, you're gonna expect to be depressed for a little while. That's
correct. Yes.
Normal. If you lost your job, that's normal. That's a normal type of being upset and sad. Which we have to make it clear that in Islam and according to the way of the Prophet ﷺ, there were times where he was sad. And times he was upset. So just because you're sad and upset or feel depressed doesn't mean that the conclusion is I need to hop on antidepressants.
Yes.
However, you have to take on that responsibility yourself to build yourself. We're talking about a very unique case of someone that has a biological issue that is affecting his lifestyle, where in the reality it shouldn't. But just say, oh, I'm depressed or I'm upset because I lost my job, I'm going to help on antidepressants. That's not what they're designed for.
No. I mean, they can be used for that, but really
try to.
Yeah, I mean, it's not
strengthen yourself.
If you know what the trigger is, you need to,
address the trigger.
If you address the trigger, then there'll be no need for them.
Yes.
If you know what the trigger is.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah. Some people don't know what the trigger is though. So and whether it's imbalance, or some people they might know the trigger, but they can't do anything about the trigger. So, look, it's a complex situation, complex area. It's getting a lot of airplay, if you like, at the moment. There's a lot of prescriptions written for antidepressants every day.
Yeah.
They are high up on the list of the most things getting depressed after getting prescribed. After the heart and cholesterol medications.
SubhanAllah. Number 4. I like this number 4. This number 4 is I find that a big issue. Lyrica.
Yes, Lyrica, huge issue. Huge. It's only just surfaced in the last 10 years, 5, 6, 7 years maybe. Relatively new drug. It's been misused. You've obviously seen some patients with
mainly for peripheral neuropathy.
Yep. Yes. Okay. So
that's one of the biggest ones.
If anyone doesn't know, Sheikh Ahmad is a podiatrist.
I think we
Dr. Ahmad is a podiatrist.
From what we have from the previous programs, Sheikh Naseem, they always give it to me. They always give it to me.
Foot doctor.
They always give it.
Foot doctor. Yeah.
A funny story with Sheikh Naseem, because when I was at Parramatta, like this is years ago, and he had come back from studies, and I didn't have reception. And he didn't have work, and he was studying too, so he needed something where he could study and also do some work. And so I go, okay, come be the admin and help me out. So he would come, and mashallah, he'll come so well presented and well dressed. Yeah. People will come and they'll think that he's the podiatrist, and he'll come and they'll start showing him, like, I got appointment, and he'll just try to get the information, but then he'll realize that they're thinking that he's the podiatrist. He'll start laughing. He goes, no. He goes, he'll joke with me. He goes, I'm the receptionist. I'm the good-looking receptionist. And there was a lot of stories, subhanallah, as you can imagine in that environment. So Lyrica, I'm hearing it for everything. I'm hearing it for absolutely everything.
Yeah, Lyrica has become a really, really big problem. It's being misused for its sedative effects and its euphoric effects when you take enough of it. Even again, it's people. I don't like to use the word normal people, but it's just everyday people. They start on it, it just
And it has
just
addictive. It's got addictive qualities.
look. It has addictive qualities, but it's not a physical addiction. It's a mental addiction. So it's something that you keep chasing the high, rather than like the opioids where if you don't have it, you're not normal, or like as you said, the karma, give me my karma, give me my karma.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that makes him normal. Is that what you said? That old man that
Yeah,
you knew?
yeah, and it was,
Yeah.
and I actually never knew.
That's basically
yeah.
that's exactly what happens with a physical addiction. You become normal when you've had the drug, and you become abnormal when you haven't had the
People
drug.
do that for coffee too.
And that's a physical addiction. Cigarettes,
They
and
have to
coffee.
have their coffee.
Yeah, you have to have the coffee. I can't. How many times do you hear someone say, "I can't function without my coffee. Don't talk to me until I have my
I had
coffee."
someone today saying, he said to me, he goes, I don't know if it's bad to say, because this is his words, I don't know if it's bad to say this, but I sort of can't wait till Ramadan finish so I can start having my coffee in the morning.
There you go.
SubhanAllah.
That's what I'm talking
And they
about.
struggle.
It's a real addiction. So this one isn't a physical addiction, but it is a mental addiction. But it is, as you said, you're seeing it in your practice. We see it every day. We'll get people trying to come in early for their Lyrica. We're trying to get more than, instead of, every 30 days.
Overdose is high on Lyrica too, or not?
Overdose is high on Lyrica, yeah, especially mixed in with the benzodiazepines and
kill,
the
yeah?
opioids. Yeah, very, very much so. In fact, Lyrica has been upgraded to. Remember, we talked about the S4 and S8, and within S4, the Schedule 4 medicine, there is subcategories, and benzodiazepines are in one of them, steroids are in another one of them, and Lyrica is in one of them as well. Such is the issue with Lyrica at the moment. People have been overdosing on it and dying in combination with
Other drugs.
the opioids. Yeah.
And just with the scheduling, there's also an ABC for pregnancy. Is there another breastfeeding? Is there another category?
Yeah, that's no, not within. There's what we call category A, B,
Which is also important
and C
people too.
that's just general any drug, any medicine.
Yeah, and that's for
For
both pregnancy and breastfeeding.
No, just pregnancy.
Just pregnancy.
Just pregnancy. Just pregnancy.
But that's not advertised on the packet generally.
No.
That's something the
that's
pharmacist
something
or the
you would
doctor
have
will
to
know.
ask us for. Yeah,
SubhanAllah.
ask the doctor or ask the pharmacist.
I do want to, and that's important, because there is
So-
a story of a pregnant sister that was given, I think, category D or something,
Whoa.
and
okay.
she was 38 weeks, and the child died.
Wow. Was that
the child died.
subhanallah, is that by accident or?
It was given. It was accident. It was an accident, but the doctor should have known. But then the pharmacy should have also.
Yes.
But they didn't pick up on it either.
Yeah.
They actually done an autopsy on the child because they were confused, and they obviously went through the history because there was nothing wrong, the normal pregnancy. And they found that there was kidney failure, and they related back to the actual medication. I wasn't sure what the full outcome was.
Yeah. Oh, that's sad.
But and it can subhanAllah, it can.
Yeah, definitely.
It can happen.
Again, we reiterate, medicines can be poisons, and anything you take, it's serious. It's not like everything's not Panadol.
Yeah.
Even Panadol is serious. Even Panadol is going through some changes. I don't know if you've heard about that.
When we were in teenage, there was a girl in school that almost died, overdosing on Panadol.
Yeah, next year they're reducing the pack size of all the Panadols. I don't know if you know about that.
To what? To how many?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're reducing all the pack sizes now and moving some in, like they're limiting. The most you're going to be able to buy is like 40 or something.
Yeah.
I think 40. You can't buy 100 pack anymore. It'll be up to 40 from
Allah.
February next year because of that same issue where
because then
people,
teenagers get a hold of it.
teenagers get a hold of it and try to so look, if you're I wanted to note down some of the signs of prescription drug addiction because just so you're aware if it's happening to you or someone you know.
Yeah. There's before. Can we just do one more before that? Because you got it here. I just found it hidden.
Yeah.
You haven't got a number to it, but I think it's important.
What is it?
Because you know what I like this. The ones some brothers say, don't medications, big pharma, all this stuff, whatever. But on steroids,
They don't
no
care.
problem. No,
They don't care. Give it to me.
no issues at all.
Yep.
You know, you can't take this and you shouldn't take this and that. But steroids, that's an exception.
Yes, well,
I think it's important because
I'll agree with that. Because
and sorry, steroids and growth hormone, same thing or different?
different.
Okay, so we want to talk about steroids. Also, growth hormones also addictive and have the same side effects.
No, look, these are not addictive. So,
Steroids.
Yeah, they're not addictive. No.
Would it be more
No,
like
they're-
because it's making me bigger, stronger?
Yeah,
Is that the addiction?
That's the addiction. The addiction is to the mirror.
Yeah.
And
Well, those poses.
sorry for anyone who got offended by that, but
It's true. That's the reality of it.
You know, they're just they're not addictive, but you'd think they're addictive the way some people
Well, they're addicted
gravitate
to the
towards
look.
them.
They're addicted to the look,
Yes,
and so they will push the boundaries,
yes,
and they have massive
yes, effects.
side effects.
Yes, huge side effects. So what they are, it's basically a synthetic or human-made variation of testosterone. So the proper term they call them is anabolic androgenic steroids. So anabolic refers to muscle building, androgenic refers to the increased male sex characteristics. Sometimes, you know, you've probably heard them: gear, the juice, the gear, the juice, the roids. You know, they're the common names. Now you're looking at me like you've spoken to a lot of people about
No,
this
because
stuff.
you hear the gear a lot,
Yeah.
and you hear a lot of people when they to what I know, they can cause obviously a lot of other side effects and issues.
Yes.
And this is from what doctors have said to me. He goes, it's funny how we ask patients, do you take any steroids? And they've got lumps and bumps and muscles and whatever. And he turns around and he'll say, no, wallah, I've never touched it in my life. And they have high blood pressure, they got arrhythmic heart,
that's right.
everything is, brother, all your symptoms, you take it, just tell me the truth. I'm not going to tell anyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then he comes
Liver
clean
issues
and then says, I'm on it. But you can tell just by looking at the guy, he looks like Hulk, that he's on it.
Yeah.
And he went from 0 to whatever in a matter of
6 months.
whatever. But yeah, it can do some serious damage. Could do some serious damage.
We've got someone doing weights there over in the window, looking good. 100%. I'm sorry to laugh. It's not funny, but they do.
But I would understand, if a lot of people in your case, what do you do? I'm a pharmacist. Can you get some? That's probably the first question you get asked. Can you get roids?
Right. Look, I don't know what the obsession is with it myself. I'm not sure. It can be dangerous. I mean, I know a lot of people don't think it can be dangerous, but it can be, because when people are bulking up with using steroids, they're taking about 10 to 50 times the normal amount. 10 to
They're
50
really
times the normal
overdosing.
amount. You're taking really, really high amounts of this stuff. So, these testosterone and these steroids, they have a place. We have them for a reason. People use them.
Yeah.
Normal, there's a reason to be using these things. These testosterone replacements. There's a reason to be using them, but in those kind of dosages, it's
Well, there was a story
absolute
of someone that his son had
craziness.
a muscular dystrophy and he wasn't reaching puberty, and they prescribed him
Yes.
Steroids, and the dad used them.
Yeah.
Instead of giving them to his son, the dad was end up using them. But
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, you hear that. Roid rage, you hear that a lot.
roid rage.
Yeah, and they go absolutely
Yeah.
crazy.
Think about now the steroids. What their side effects is paranoia, extreme jealousy,
That's
extreme
interesting.
irritability.
Extreme jealousy.
Yeah, extreme irritability and aggression, delusions, impaired judgment, and mania. Think about a man who has, think about testosterone. It is basically like having testosterone through the roof. It's like having 10 alpha males in one. You just, it's just man on steroids. I can't explain it to you.
That's
If
a common thing. Like if someone gets a muscle car, they go, "This is a Holden on steroids." This is a common
Yeah,
thing.
it's-
And we've
it's-
bulked it up. We've
yeah.
we've
So
pushed its limit,
this is testosterone to the limit.
and people can die. Yeah, they have heart attacks.
Oh,
and,
there's
yeah.
heart attacks, there's liver failure, kidney failure. There's lots of things that can happen, especially
Increased
over
blood
the long
clots you got
term.
here.
Yeah, blood clots,
Stroke,
enlarged
heart
hearts. Yeah, it's and not to mention, shrinking testicles. Now, it's a thing.
That's not a rumor.
No, it's not a rumor.
Mm.
It's real. Baldness. Don't look at me. But don't look at me.
So it really has like serious.
Yeah. It does. It can shrink your testicles. It decreases your sperm count. It adds to baldness because what happens is, and I'm not going to use the term that it's used on the street, but you can develop breasts.
I've heard that.
Yeah. You know what they
they've had
call
to
them?
have
They
fat or something, and they have to have surgery to.
Yeah, because what happens, it's a really, the way the body works, it's a bit complex, but
Well,
basically...
you're giving something that Allah has said, this is how much you need, and you're saying, no, I'm going to give it more.
Yes.
Pretty
And
much.
then the body shuts down and starts turning it into the women's hormone.
SubhanAllah. It's
So,
like a reverse effect.
Yeah. Yep.
SubhanAllah.
and if women use it, because sometimes women will use it, they start to grow excess facial hair.
They have the reverse effect too.
And their breasts decrease in size. They can get baldness, and they get a deepened voice like a man. So that's what testosterone does, and that's what anabolic steroids do to our body.
Yeah,
and
Allah-
yes, if you
Allah-
train, you will get more muscles quicker. Yes, that's correct. We know that.
But when you stop training,
But when you stop training, you can't take them forever.
SubhanAllah. The brothers are saying that we're running a little bit out of time,
Yep.
but I want to just to finish off on those points that you wanted to mention in regards to signs of addiction.
Yes. Look, what I want people to, if you know someone or yourself, in this category of people who are struggling with, whether it's opioids or the benzodiazepines, look, you can get help. You can get help. Speak to the doctor. Speak to your pharmacist if you need to, but you can speak to your doctor. There is ways you can try to help yourself and get off them or reduce them slowly and wean yourself up. And if and how do you know you're addicted? How do you know you have an issue? Well, that's the first part, is identifying that you might have an issue, or so if you feel like you're taking higher doses than you're supposed to, you're taking them more often, you're going to the pharmacy, getting early refills. What the most common thing we see is people, I've lost my tablets, I need them more. Losing their prescriptions, so they go to go to the doctor back. Yeah, they seeking things from the black market. All these things, if you're even thinking about stealing or forging a prescription or selling a prescription, all these things, if any of these things are happening, or it's happening to someone, it's probably because you're addicted and you may need some help.
And there's no harm in going to your doctor saying, listen, I feel I need to get off. Just like someone
100%.
can say, I need medication, you can also say, oh, well, can you take me off?
Yes, of course. Of course. Can you take me off
take
this?
this medication?
Yeah.
And there are pain management centers. There are people. Well, I know like rehabilitation specialists, people that
Yep.
look at chronic pain,
Yes.
and what they do is they try to put a program for you to manage your pain. It might
Yep.
include a little bit of medication, but also include exercise. It might include nutrition. It might include diet. All these things together.
Yes. Weight loss can also.
Yeah, and in a sense that would give you a more happy and joyful life,
Yes.
rather than becoming dependent on just one
Correct.
one product.
Yeah.
Subhanallah. Jazakallah khair. Is anything else
Yeah, come.
before we wrap up?
No, that was.
Wallah,
good.
it's been a pleasure. I
Same
know
here.
it's the 27th night, but like I said, we try to
Right.
stick to the actual program, and I think people benefit a lot when they subhanallah hear your perspective, and inshallah it would let people think twice and look at their situation, and this is only for the betterment of your
Yes.
of yourself,
For yourself,
subhanallah.
Yeah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. I'd like to thank the
Very good.
brothers. Wa jazakumullah khair.
Yep.
Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yep.